Hello, hello, all you rejects out there in internet land. It's time for your head rejects here, fat and angry. He's fat and I'm angry, and today we're going to be talking about movies again. In particular, the Predator series. At least the main three.
Yes, due to certain life choices, my friend here has insistent that I talk about vagina-faced monsters. So that's what we're going to do.
You just finished watching a marathon of those three movies.
Yes.
Don't give me flack like it's like I just pulled this out of my ass for no explainable reason.
Oh, I said due to my personal life choices, you're insistent that I talk about this. So I will. So, Predator.
Yes, the first one in the series.
Yes, fuck you if you want to talk about spoilers. The movie's old enough that, if you haven't seen it yet, you're probably not going to.
Spoilers! My mom's kept me locked in the basement.
Yes, where you belong. Now eat your fish heads.
You be a good little geek and eat your chicken heads, and you go back to the sideshow where you came from.
Alright, so, anyway, this is a movie series I found out through just a large collection of recorded VHSs in my closet. It had various other horror movies. The Alien franchise was another one, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to talk about in that one. Seriously, a shitload.
But I would say Predator was probably the first semi-horror genre movie that I actually wasn't scared of and really enjoyed. And about the time that I started to get into it was around the same time that they started making the Aliens and Predator action figure toys. So, it was a double bonus for me there.
That was around the mid 90s or early 90s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
They started doing a push, and I do remember the Alien or the Aliens action figures that came out well after the movie, like years after the movie, because the Aliens movie was in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't no 90s flick.
Yeah, no, I think the third Alien movie was released around 93. Not positive on that.
Well, like it came out on the Nintendo, the Genesis, and the Super Nintendo, so that kind of gives you an idea of like about that time, because the Super Nintendo was relevant up until about 95, and a lot of people still had Nintendo, so they're still making regular Nintendo games.
Yeah. I do remember I saw that one in theaters when I was visiting my mom in Hawaii, but that's not Predator.
No, it's not, but we do go off on tangents here. So, talking about the first movie first, do you think it was a good idea for them to show the Predator ship at the beginning?
I don't think it hurt the movie in any way.
I think it gets rid of some of the mysticism because, like, if you take that scene out, then like it's just some fucking monster in the jungle just ending people's shit in a bad way.
Yeah, but I mean, eventually, once you actually see it and you actually get to see its technology in action, you're going to realize it's not a monster of this world. So,
I guess it kind of gives away too much. I heard the reason they added it in post production because I think in test screenings people didn't realize it was supposed to be an alien. But then again, like they take average people for those screenings, and the average person is dumb as a sack of hammers.
uh, now, if they had gone with the original creature design, then I think the beginning scene with the spaceship would have been absolutely necessary. But thankfully, they didn't go with the toad lizard thing.
So originally it was supposed to look like a toad and a lizard.
It was this weird kind of toad-bodied lizard face thing with real slender arms, and there's actually a few scenes where it's in camouflage, where it has that original costume.
Or a silhouette of it.
Yeah. Well, it's what they did was they had him in just like a solid color suit. It was usually red, sometimes white, but then they would CG over the mirror effect to give it the camouflage.
Yeah,
But
they can't just use a green shoot because there's a fuckload of green in the jungle, and that would have looked crazy stupid.
yeah, but
It would have been funny though.
but yeah, there are actually a few scenes where they have the original costume, and after they had filmed those scenes, they told I think it was producers that hey, fuck off, this thing's crap, and they completely redesigned the monster.
into essentially what equates to like a fucking bodybuilder with like kind of like a toadish looking skin or like a gecko looking skin, and then just like an angry, pissed off head.
Yeah. And originally, when they were designing the creature, I believe it was James Cameron who suggested actually putting the mandibles on the creature. I remember watching the commentary, and the guy designing the creature, he was on a plane, and he couldn't quite figure out what final touches the monster needed, and it was a famous sci-fi director that happened to see the design and suggested the mandibles. I want to say it's James Cameron, but I could be wrong.
Well, we don't do any prior research to these audio recordings. So
Yeah.
as far as we know, it was. If it's not, who fucking cares? It was somebody.
You can correct me in the comments, but you know, just
Oh,
don't,
that's gonna happen anyway.
yeah, just don't be a dick about it.
Oh, that's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah.
It's the internet, goddammit. Haven't you learned yet?
Well, you can try. You can try.
You can try to be nice and see how far that gets you on the internet.
Yeah, that's what I do. But anyway,
So yeah, we start off the movie with them dragging Dutch out of retirement. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, correct? Dutch.
yes.
And who is it that gets him out of retirement? It's what's the name of the dude?
God, I should know this. Carl Weathers. I don't remember what the name of it. Mac. I believe this is
Mac.
Mac.
It was like I wasn't thinking about the actor. I was thinking about the character.
Yeah. But the character played by Carl Weathers. I believe his name is Mac.
So yeah, they talk about there's like he's apparently Dutch was like some sort of like a spook ops type guy. Like,
Yeah, he considers his team a rescue group, not assassins. So he's actually selective about what he'll do. And it turns out the kind of mission that they're going on is not one that he would have. He gets tricked into doing it, essentially.
Yeah, I think he goes there because Mac tells him that there are hostages there, and I think he tells him originally because you watched the first one earlier today. I didn't get to your place in time to see it.
Yeah.
I got withheld by family crap that I had to deal with. But that aside, I think I remember him saying that they sent in a team to pick up some hostages. The team went like
Silent, yeah.
yeah, they went silent. They went missing, and so they're bringing in Dutch's team to like try to recover them if they're even still alive.
Right. And that's where the fun begins.
Yeah, they end up in like what is it like the jungles of South America?
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially like you know.
Which one specifically, I don't remember, but
It's like I'm guessing it's like the same areas where like they had the whole Iran-Contra thing going on during the '80s, which is probably where they got the idea of actually doing it there in the first place, like setting the movie there. Because otherwise, you can just say generic jungle in Africa, or just generic jungle somewhere in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
but they very quickly find like the skinned remains of the team that went missing, and then they have a really awesome scene where they're blowing up the terrorist camp, and they do enough explosions to make Michael Bay proud.
I'm pretty sure Michael Bay gets a little bit wet every time he sees that scene.
Absolutely.
He's just like, you know, it's soggy panties time for him. I'm not saying he wears panties, but I have yet to see any proof to refute that.
It's a good point.
I don't have to prove that he does. I can just ask you to prove that he doesn't. This is the internet, goddammit. That's how things work. I can't even say that with a straight face. But anyway, so like yeah, they wipe out the terrorists, and then I think they find out that they're actually like a drug cartel or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is why they were sent there in the first place.
Yeah. Basically, they're dealing with illegal arms and drugs, and they've been trying to find this nest for a while, and
so Dutch gets mad at Mac, and like you know they start getting all pissy, and then like one by one they start getting picked off.
Yeah.
By a creature that they can't see that has some sort of badass weaponry.
Yeah, and the reason that they can't just get out of there is because the they won't send an extraction team because of all the terrorist activity going on in that jungle.
Yeah, they have to get to like a point where they can actually get to an extraction helicopter, which means they need to like beat feet like across. I think it's like a border of some sort.
Yeah, I think they're trying to make it to a valley or something like that.
Someplace out of like drug cartel and terrorist control,
Yeah.
so they don't have to worry about getting shot down. Because that's what happens when you send like lightly armored troop transport helicopters, as we learned very quickly in Vietnam, but didn't seem to learn from in Vietnam.
Well, I don't know about real war side, but they have some awesome weapons and explosions in this one.
Oh yeah, like a helicopter like the one they used to drop them off and to pick them up later, like yeah, like a fucking 9mm bullet will go through the skin of one of those things. Because like back in Vietnam, I heard that like helicopter pilots used to get like shrapnel vests, which can't really stop a bullet, but would sometimes slow them down. And they would like essentially fold them up and put them under their seats so that they were less likely to end up with like small arms fire flying up into their asses while they were piloting their helicopters. Because not every single shot was aimed at an engine.
Yeah.
But that aside, you do get like kind of the Vietnam vibe. Like I see that movie, like it reminds me of a lot of stuff like Full Metal Jacket, and at least like the first parts of that movie, and stuff like Platoon and whatnot.
Yeah.
Probably because like, well, guess what? They're all set in the jungle.
They even have some of the same actors.
That's true.
But yeah, eventually, like the entire team gets picked off except for Arnold Schwarzenegger and.
Well, you're jumping the gun a little bit here because there's plenty to talk about. Like for instance, you got like his team members, of course, Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah, he.
who's just a fun character in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At one point, he describes himself as a sexual tyrannosaurus.
there you go. That's a fucking quote that you can take wherever you like.
It's a good
And then,
quote.
like, I think he offers chewing tobacco around on the helicopter, like no one takes it.
Yeah, that's when he does it. He says, "A bunch of goddamn pussies up in here. This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus."
I think he called
Just
him
like me.
I think he called him like slack-jawed faggots or something like that. He was
It might have been.
very, very descriptive in his insults. That man.
Yes, he was.
There's a reason he was a politician for a while. Actually, I think it was like all the vocal skills and like all the speech skills that he learned doing professional wrestling and like color commentary for professional wrestling, which is why he was such a good politician. Nothing quite prepares you for going up on stage, yelling about things you don't like, and not being intimidated by like people counter yelling at you. Like being a fucking wrestler for like a good length of time, having to do all those promo shoots, or a lot of them either like had very short time to write up something or just had to make up shit on the fly.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, go on YouTube and check out some of the promo shoots with the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage, and you will see like the best and worst when it comes to making shit up with a microphone in front of your face.
Can you imagine a Macho Man was in that movie?
That would have been fucking awesome. But like they probably wouldn't have let him like take video of him without his glasses at that point. I mean, we had to wait all the way to like the first Spider-Man movie before we saw him without glasses.
Oh.
But going back to that, you also have you got fucking Jesse Ventura with that minigun that he refers to as Old Painless.
Yeah.
That's not so much a gun as it is a deforestation tool.
Yeah, there's a great scene where they just like go anti-vegan and completely blow away a huge stretch of forest.
Because they think they realize they're being attacked from the forest and they can't see what's shooting at them. So they just unload, and all the trees that were there are no longer.
Yeah, I think that should be like a commercial for steaks.
There you go. Be a real fucking man. Be like Jesse Ventura. Get out your minigun. Run those barrels up until they're hot enough that you can grill a fucking steak on that shit. And then you eat it. While shooting at lesser things that are alive. Like rocks. Well, not rocks, but like trees and plants and shit. Is your garden growing too long? Keep that shit in check.
Terra firmina.
That is so fun. It's hard not to go back to that, you know?
Yeah. It clears.
It moves! It digs! But, God, they could have put Hulk Hogan in that movie. I guess he was too busy doing Commando, though.
A lot of wrestlers would be great for that series. They could still put Hulk Hogan in it. I mean, he needs the money, right?
I don't know, but, like, I just like seeing him in things.
Yeah.
He's got a very distinctive voice. Even when he's talking calmly, you can clearly recognize it's him talking.
Suburban Commando was fun.
But let's see, what else was there? There was you got what was that one guy's name? The one dude with the shaver.
uh,
The name of the actor.
I don't know.
Isn't he like? Haven't we seen him in a lot of stuff? Like he's the guy with the lazy eye, or was this like? Or am I thinking of someone different?
You're thinking of someone different. I can't remember his name, but I do remember part of the reason he actually got the role is he was in a scene with Arnold before, uh, where they got in a fight, and I forget what the fight was about, but he basically tells Arnold, you know, I'm a Green Beret, and Arnold replies, I eat Green Berets for breakfast.
Well, yeah, he's like the crazy silent guy, and he's got like the shaver he keeps running along his face. And like when he gets really stressed out, like you see him like keep the razor pressed to the point where he starts bleeding when he breaks his razor. And then like when Jesse Ventura dies, he grabs his minigun, and he just goes full on crazy because you have to remember that they're like a team that have done several operations together, so they all know each other.
Yeah, that's one thing Dutch, Arnold's character, makes clear is he doesn't consider his team expendable. Um,
Yeah, they're like family to him.
yeah, there was another reason he was upset about this mission, is because he was basically expendable in the eyes of his employers.
I think Max is supposed to be like a CIA goon or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Like some sort of like government like mouthpiece, like you know, like a handler of some sort. Which is why he was there himself as well as he didn't just send them in, stay back there like doing paperwork and shit.
Right.
But so like I love it. He's like when they're in the helicopter, they're playing that famous song like from what was it, Little Richie? Like I'm gonna have me some fun tonight.
Yeah.
And of course, like later on, like when this one squatty is going completely fucking sideways, like going after the predator, he's like scrambling up a hill with his gun. I'm gonna have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun. And it's just like, all right, he's left us. Moving on. And of course, he gets fucking ended too.
Yeah.
And then there's there's this Native American dude who's
his name is Billy.
yeah, Billy. And he fucking like you can tell he does not fuck around.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters. In particular, there's this one great line where a bunch of the squad members are commenting that he's been acting kind of twitchy, and this guy's like, Billy, what's going on out there? And Billy says, I'm scared. Bullshit, you ain't afraid of no man. There's something out there, and it ain't no man.
He's like, I don't know what it is, but it ain't one of us, goddammit. Like yeah, and so like he's got that very distinctive laugh that became like kind of iconic for that movie.
Yeah.
That really big booming laugh. I'm sure that wasn't like a real laugh. That's probably a stage laugh, but still, it comes into good effect, especially like when the alien starts the predator starts mimicking it. That's one thing that they don't explain. He does it in the first and second movie, and you don't actually see the predators use it for what I believe to be its intended purpose until the third movie.
Yeah.
Because like you hear him, he's stalking them for a while, and he's like eavesdropping on them, and you can hear him like he'll pick up like audio samples from them, like in the first one he's like, hey, over here, and like he copies that down, of course, like the laugh and anytime, and like he'll start mimicking back to them, like almost like mocking them, like later on in the film with those sound clips. In the second movie, he picks up this kid like offering him some candy. Want some candy? And he like warbles it so it sounds all fucked up.
Yeah.
And then like in the third movie, you actually get to see him use it. Where like one of the kind of going ahead a little bit. One of the characters gets injured, and they put him in a clearing, and they realize that the clearing's a trap. But they keep hearing the character calling out for help, and then one of them shoots the character and put him out of his misery, only to realize that he's been dead the whole time, and the calling keeps happening. I think the reason that they were doing that in the first one was because it's just like you get like a duck call when you're hunting ducks, or like a moose call when you're hunting moose, or it's like it's a call. It's a lure. It's an audio lure.
Yeah, I think that's basically the intended purpose.
But you don't really see them use that in the first or second movie.
Well, I think part of it is they don't really understand our language, or if they do, I guess they're just using it for mind games.
Actually, no. Wait, come to think of it, he does kind of do it in the first movie because there's a bit like he disorients one of the characters when he starts saying, "Hey, over here," and like it draws his attention, and then he ends up blasting that character to fucking bits.
Yeah, but I think, like for the audience, it's just supposed to be creepy.
And it is.
Yeah.
It very is. There's no denying that. And of course, like they end up rescuing a hostage, and this hostage, they finally find out that she does speak English, but it takes him a while because at first she's just yelling and screaming at him, and some,
I think it's Brazilian, but I could be wrong.
well, like they speak different languages in Brazil. It's like a combination of like Portuguese, Castilian, and non-Castilian, Spanish, and like it just depends on what part of Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazil has had a lot of people influence them over the years, and so they speak a lot of different languages. So they realize that they need to get the fuck out of there, and so they're trying to get to the extraction point. And of course, like the predator, like is coming up on them. So Billy stands there and he takes out this big ass fucking Bowie knife, and you see the predator come up with his like fucking wrist blades, his gauntlet blades, and then the camera pulls away and it shows like Arnold Schwarzenegger and the girl running. And apparently Billy lasted all of 4 seconds before you hear him give out like a death scream. I'm like, wow, he did not like hold his own against that thing at all.
Yeah, but that's the skull they decided to show the Predator polishing, so apparently the fact that he was willing to take a stand like that meant something to the Predator.
Well, like, I'm assuming that he took the skulls of some of them, except for the ones where, like, he fucking took their heads. I forget, what are all the weapons that he uses? Is it just the plasma cannon, or his plasma caster and the wrist blades, or is
And the first one, it's just the plasma caster and the wrist blades.
Yeah, he doesn't use the javelin or the fucking destructo disc. That's all in the second movie.
Yeah, the second movie is where they get the more interesting weapons.
Well, at least it's different. Like, 4 weapons is more interesting than just 2.
Yeah, but yeah.
So yeah, you get that. The plasma caster in the first movie, that thing fucking wrecks. It's like when it hits people, it fucking blows holes in them, like clear ass through.
Yeah, there's a point where they show Jesse get shot by it, and there's a hole all the way through his chest, and
It's clearly see through.
yeah, and Jesse's a big boy, so that has a lot of meat to cut through.
There's a lot of bits there that's got to burrow through to get to the other side. Plus, which is probably a pretty impressive spine.
Yeah,
So
having to carry around old painless, that'll do it.
So yeah, like you get some great quotes from this movie. Stuff like "Ain't got time to bleed," which is another one from Jesse Ventura. And then after they go apeshit on the jungle, and they thought that they hit nothing, and then they realize that there's like some green fluorescent blood there. It's like, we must have hit it. It's like, if it bleeds, we can kill it. It's like, God, I've heard that so often. Even like recently, I still hear that from time to time, especially like when playing certain games like Monster Hunter or Dark Souls. If it bleeds, we can kill it. It's like, well, that's wishful thinking in those fucking games, but more power to you. You got to keep that hope up.
Yeah.
But so, like, finally, it comes down to the big confrontation between Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dutch, and the Predator.
Yeah.
And at this point, Arnold eventually figures out that this thing's using some kind of camouflage.
He figures out, well, he gets to see the camouflage in action. He also figures out the heat vision because he fell.
He falls into a thing and he gets covered in mud.
Yeah, and the creature can't see him. So he decides to go all primal, gets himself a nice mud bath, starts building all these primitive weapons like bows and spears and setting traps.
He even gets like a couple of shells and like empties out their gunpowder into like leaf pouches and puts them at the end of spears, I think.
One for an arrow, one for a spear.
Yeah, and he sets up like all these like the kind of shit you would have seen in Vietnam, like all these like handmade like wood bamboo traps, pitfall traps, net traps, dead weight traps, spring loaded vine traps, shit like that. Essentially, if you've ever seen like any type of like jungle trap, he uses pretty much all of it in this movie.
Yeah, and
He gets like these big torches to act as decoys to draw the predator's attention. And he also realizes that once the camo is exposed with enough water that it shorts out.
then after managing to tag a few hits on the predator corners him down in a swamp where his mud's got washed off, and the predator decides, all right, time to do this mano a mano, takes off his mask, tosses his plasma caster aside, and then they go about it punching each other out.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger quickly realizes, as big of a man he has put like a small wee baby compared to this big ass motherfucker. Who'd you say he was? Like the actor who was in the Predator suit?
I don't know his name, but I do know he was the same guy who played the Sasquatch in Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, that's what you said. Like in Harry and the Hendersons, that dude was pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
You get a much better size comparison to like the average person, even though John Lithgow is like pretty tall for an actor.
Yeah, they did say they wanted someone who could make Arnold look like a peanut in comparison. And I think they succeeded, because there's a part where they have the Predator holding him up by the neck so we could look him face to face, and Arnold's a good foot off the ground.
At least. Yeah, but like, yeah, this Predator is like, he's slapping him around like a redheaded stepchild. It's sad how he just manhandles Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it does give you a good idea of like, these things aren't just sneaky. They're not just smart. They're incredibly fucking strong.
Yeah.
Like far stronger than the average person. But of course, like, Arnold's been setting up all these booby traps, and eventually he gets the thing down. And like, I love he comes up on it holding a big ass rock, just intending to cave in this thing's skull. And he sees it there wounded and like coughing up its blood and just kind of pathetic looking. And he feels sorry for it because he knows he's won. And quickly regrets that decision almost immediately.
Yep. As he finds out this thing has a very big bomb strapped to his arm, which he is now detonating, so...
And he starts laughing at him, like imitating the laugh of Billy.
Yep.
And like he runs as fast as he can, seeing this. I love how just bad the bomb effects look, because it's all like, it's where like they take animation and they animate over the actual film cells, and it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
The plasma caster effects I really like for the movie, but the bomb getting ready to blow, because it looks like a mushroom cloud kind of going in slow motion and backwards.
Yeah.
Until it just explodes out into a mushroom cloud. But just the effect of like all this orange shit like slowly coalescing in the glowing pit where the Predator was just kind of looks silly compared to everything else you see in the movie. And of course Arnold's trying to haul ass. And he gets a good distance away, jumps behind like a big dirt and log barrier just as the bomb goes off. Though in the second movie they say the bomb was so massive that it set off.
It could.
It deforested an area that was about 300 city blocks wide.
Something like that.
It's like, I don't care how fast you think Arnold Schwarzenegger was in his prime, he is not that fast.
Yeah.
Unless we're to assume that deforested just meant it knocked down all the trees, that the crater wasn't like 300 city blocks wide.
Yeah,
Because there would not have been a Dutch that got carried off in a helicopter at the end of the movie, like there was. Yeah, Dutch gets rescued. He gets pretty, like, sunburnt from the blast. And I think in canon later on they described that he ended up contracting cancer from the radiation from the explosion because it was a nuclear bomb of some description.
I did have some of the comics where they mentioned his character, but I didn't get to fully see what was going on. I do know that like he was suffering post-traumatic stress from having to deal with this creature.
And
Like,
also losing his entire team one by one.
yeah, like one event that happens is he's going to a dentist to get some work done, and the doctor puts him under, and he thinks he's woken up on a spaceship with these things experimenting on him, so he leaps out of his chair and starts strangling his dentist. And then once the dentist starts pleading for his life, he realizes he's choking out his doctor, not one of these creatures.
Nor would he have been able to choke out one of these creatures. The thing would have slapped him off of him like a mere fly.
Yeah.
Get this thing off my neck. It's irritating me. It's making me itchy. But so like yeah, so we what's the name of the predator race?
I believe it's pronounced Yacha. I could be wrong on that.
Because like they're from the planet Yach or something.
I'm not sure on that. Um,
They're essentially an alien race, and based on from the comics that you've read and some of the videos I've seen, like their entire culture is kind of based around like you're going up the hierarchy by hunting. Like
yes, hunting is they're basically the most relevant thing of their culture. It's your status, it's your honor, uh, and such. Uh,
like the young ones before they can be considered like a fully formed adult, they have to go on like a rite of passage hunt, and if they fail it, they're exiled.
right, and then like to get a mate, you have to prove yourself through the hunt. And as I understand, the females are actually much bigger than the males.
That's what I keep hearing, which is kind of scary when I think about that. Is like it can either be like a giant, morbidly obese breeding thing like a queen ant, or like a queen, well, not a queen bee, but like a queen ant, just like this giant, like proboscis like ass coming out the back of it. That like they get the right to mate with that, like that turn. Or I'm thinking they're just giant, fucking like
As I understand it, they're essentially giantesses of their people. So
they're like thinking of like the Amazonians from fucking Futurama, except like with like a predator face,
yeah,
which is rather heinous to think about that.
yes, and I've actually read in multiple sources that apparently they are quite passionate when it comes time for mating. So,
So you best be strong and robust and very very sturdy, otherwise you're gonna end up like the the prisoners from the Amazonian planet.
yes, you will not survive the mating if you are not a good hardy warrior.
Death by crushed pelvis. Passionate seems like a very kind word for what that must entail,
Yeah.
without getting into any of the nasty, squishy, unpleasant details. Ugh, just thinking about it makes me want to wash my brain in soap.
Well, I've got bleach.
Now that's for when like you've seen something you need to unsee immediately. You just pour it in your fucking eyes.
I've got the Alien versus Predator movies.
I know you like them. I'm not a fan.
But yeah. So that probably mostly covers the first one.
Yeah, the second one,
The second one, story-wise, it's not as good, but
in terms of what actually goes on, it is pretty much like scaled up from the first movie.
yeah, one of the big things new to this is they introduce more weapons to the Predators. They have the net, the barbed dart, the spear, and the smart disc.
Yeah, like in the first movie, you see like for those of you who haven't seen the first movie, the wrist blades, they have these like kind of forearm mounted like plates, and under it, like at least the alien from this movie has like two really jagged, gnarly looking fucking blades that pop out that appear to be at least about 2 feet maybe in length.
About a
Maybe,
foot to two, yeah.
yeah, somewhere like about 1 foot, 2 foot, or somewhere in between. And they have the plasma caster. The plasma caster is this little.
It's a shoulder-mounted laser cannon.
I don't even call it a laser. It's like a plasma caster assumes it's just superheated plasma, and based on the boom it makes and
Yeah.
how it eats through people, yeah, that does sound about right for superheated plasma.
Yeah.
When I think laser, I think of like cutting or like a short burst. Like this thing's just like a ball of fiery pain that comes flying at you. And
Yeah.
it's interesting how they use it because it works independent of itself. Instead, it's like it's operated based on like what the predator's looking at. Their mask actually doubles as a targeting system, and they can tell where they're aiming. You get this the famous 3-dot reticle. It's like these 3 lasers that show where this plasma caster is going to go. So you know you're in for some shit when you see these 3 dots show up on your person. But in this one, you got all kinds of new toys for them to play with. You mentioned, how often do you see the net? Because I only remember it from the end of the movie. Is that the only time you see it?
No, you get to see one of the Jamaicans and King Willie's crew get killed by it, and then when Danny Glover's in the ship, he also gets hit by it.
But he gets out of it.
Because he has the smartness.
Yeah, they use that in the Alien vs. Predator movie as well. It's like it's a net that constricts, and it's like monofilament wire.
Yeah.
So you're just in for some bad time.
Yeah, now in the original one, Predator 2, you just see the net like kind of constrict around them when it hits the wall. In the Aliens versus Predator movies, you actually see there's like this tube that the net comes out of, and it starts to constrict the net.
Yeah. But either way, it's just like a bad time.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I think there was a couple of Warhammer 40,000 weapons that are based off of that. The barbed strangler and the monofilament wire that the Eldar use, which is just, it's just unpleasant. The way to describe how those things work in the game.
It kind of reminds me of the wire trap from Cube.
Cube. That deserves its own talking points.
Yeah.
But, so you see that, you see the darts, which are just like small projectiles.
Yeah, it's this forked barb, and I think you only get to see that used in action once. Again, it's with the King Willie gang, that's where most of these weapons get shown off.
There's a javelin, which gets used quite often. It's mostly just a collapsible spear.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's about a foot long, and then it doubles, well, it actually triples in length because it extends out in both ends. And then, like, the blades come out and extend it even further, so it's like a full-size fucking javelin.
Yeah. And that one you get to see that it can easily tear through steel and such, because there's a point on the rooftop where he chucks it and it's going through AC units and such.
Like nobody's business, and eventually gets stuck in, like, a concrete wall. But only after having gone through all the fucking AC units, ducts, and halfway through the fucking concrete wall.
Yeah.
So it could just be like it's got some sort of like a mass driving technology that increases its mass in flight, so it can penetrate further. Or it could just be that it's being hucked by one of these, like, roided out predators that we already know from the ass whipping it gives Arnold Schwarzenegger are like much stronger than a human could ever hope to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the smart disc.
Yeah, there's a few variations of this, but the one you see in part 2, it's this extendable glaive that...
the glaive. That's the best way to compare it, isn't it?
Yeah, it actually targets down who it's going towards and comes back. And some of the later films, they actually have to, like, try to throw these things. It doesn't just do the work for them.
Yeah, like it almost seems like it's designed to propel itself, because Danny Glover, who's the main protagonist in this film, when he uses it later, it seems to increase his strength, or at least increase the force when he uses it as a weapon.
Yeah.
Almost as if, like, when you're throwing it, it just immediately knows to go in that direction very fast and very hard.
Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's kind of nice to have like a rundown of the equipment. We're also to understand that the predators don't breathe our atmosphere. They can breathe it for a while, but not for too long.
Yeah, in this one you actually see him using an air mask after his normal mask comes off.
So they can breathe in Earth's atmosphere for a while, but I'm assuming that if they're in it for too long, that like they start getting disoriented, they could be getting winded. It could be that there's too much oxygen or there's not enough oxygen. We're not exactly sure what their environment is. In the third movie, you see that they're quite capable of being without their masks for any length of time, but the humans don't seem to complain about the atmosphere, like it being too difficult for them to breathe.
Yeah,
So
maybe it had something to do with all the pollution.
it could be like that their natural habitat is just like so like free of pollutants that it's like completely pure. That any industry that they use, because obviously they have technology that can make plasma casters and spaceships and shit like that.
Yeah,
But it could be that like it's just all clean manufacturing and clean energy. We don't fucking know. They're an alien species.
Yeah.
How does it work? I don't know. Ask the fucking writers.
Yeah, and in this one you also get to see more of their medical kit. You get to see them.
Well, you get to see a medical kit. The one of the first ones, he doesn't fucking use medical kit, to my knowledge.
He does briefly. He injects himself and he puts like a suture on his leg, but you don't really get to see the full process. It's very brief.
Well, going back to the point of this one, it's supposed to be L.A., right? Because
Yes.
nothing good ever happens in L.A. Not in the 80s, goddammit.
Yeah, they're experiencing an unusual heat wave, which is spiking the temperatures up to 109 degrees.
And driving people insane.
Yeah, and there are several drug cartels and violent gangs that are just basically taking over the streets. And all these creatures, they're drawn to heat and conflict.
Yeah, they make a point to say that, so we can assume that their natural habitat is probably like hot as fuck.
Probably like Texas.
Oh, except like, well, it's probably like the fucking Amazon jungles, man. Just for like, how they seem to enjoy wooded areas so much.
Yeah.
I've seen some artist renditions and shit from what their planet would look like, and it kind of looks like alien technology mixed with like Incan temples. Like their buildings are generally smooth and tiered, kind of like those Incan pyramids. How they're not just a flat pyramid like an Egyptian one, but it's like it's a pyramid shape with like lots of steps.
A ziggurat.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, actually, that is pretty accurate to most of the comic books I've read.
And it often shows like shitloads of jungles off in the distance and like a very misty, muggy, like uncomfortably humid looking atmosphere.
Yeah.
Just looking at that shit reminds me of summer. And not in a good way.
Almost here.
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. But, so this is all going on. You get Danny Glover, who's a cop, who's like trying to deal with like all the heat and all the bullshit going on with all these gangs going to war with each other. And guess what? Fucking Predator shows up to go on a hunt.
Yeah.
And he's going after people left and right, and mostly going after drug cartels because they automatically go to where the fighting is, presumably because they assume that that's where the best warriors are.
Yeah. And in the midst of him finding these mutilated corpses, that is the Predator's handiwork, he's told to stay out of the investigation, so this special unit, which is led by Gary Busey's character...
Of course it's Gary Busey, why wouldn't it be Gary Busey?
And he's too much of a hot-headed cop to just leave things alone, so he keeps...
He's a loose cannon. He's a rogue cop. He's got one mission, clean up these streets of LA.
So he keeps getting involved and keeps finding these corpses, and his partner Danny ends up getting killed, and he won't leave it alone, and eventually, while he's tracking down this killer, the team that Gary Busey has working for him basically catches him and says, "Look, it's a fucking alien hunter. We're trying to capture him. Stay the fuck out."
So essentially, like, it's like, yeah, he's like chasing after it, and like in a way that I was laughing at because I'm watching it, and like he knows like the predator is up on the rooftops, but he can't really see him because he's using its camouflage, and so he's driving down an alley, looking directly up at the rooftops, and I'm thinking, God, just how many homeless people is he running down right now? Because he's not actually looking where the fuck he's going. The only thing you see him actually hit is like a corrugated steel, like fence that's like made like fucking paper thin. So of course it's like the shit they put as barricades in like movies when you need a car to go through without getting damaged. It's like a chain link fence, except in real life, chain link fences will fuck up your car if you drive through them. It's like, a la Mythbusters, now we know that. But, so like, yeah, they use like a big ass truck and they fucking run his vehicle off the road and just drag him out of his car and bring him into their unit. I'm thinking, wow, they're doing just a shit job of isolating his neck after being in such a horrific accident. Just making that neck injury so much worse. Hey, he's probably concussed too, and they're generally not helping. It's like, yeah, Gary Busey pretty much explains like the plot of the first one, saying like, there's a special ops team that got hunted down in the jungles of South America. They described it as something that could cloak itself and that it could see in infrared. So that's what they're going on. I kind of joke that they should be they should be working for the Utani Corporation, because like trying to like capture aliens alive and use them for science and military science always seems to be like the the business plan for Wayland Utani. Wayland Utani, building better worlds and trying to steal aliens because
profit.
it's like step 1, capture aliens. Step 2, step 3, profit.
But Gary Busey explains that they've set up a trap to capture it. They've basically made this room designed with some sort of radioactive dust that will allow them to see through his cloaking. And,
essentially, it causes his cloaking to straight up fail.
And the suits they have block off all body heat, so they won't be able. So he won't be able to see them.
So yeah, a couple of them have guns, but the rest of them have like CO2 spewers to like try to freeze it.
Yeah.
And so they want to capture the thing alive so that they can like learn from its tech for a military application, because of course. And they show them like they're sneaking around in this meat factory because they discover that like, what is it, like every couple of days the alien goes in there to eat. I mean, the predator goes in there to eat.
Yeah.
It says we particularly likes beef.
Yeah, they found out that he goes there to feed, and that's why they're using this particular location to trap him.
Yeah, like they said, they found a way to track it by its pheromones, and I'm thinking, man, that predator's got to have some serious fucking BO that they can track your ass around town by your pheromone signature.
Especially with back then's technology.
80s tech.
Fart detected, fart detected, fart detected.
So yeah, but they're going up and they don't realize that they got all this fucking heavy equipment on, that they start going up like these like steel girder steps because it's a warehouse, and they're making steel creak as they're walking on it. So the predator hears them, realizes he can't see them, and knows that they're there because the sound's coming from there. So you see him, he's flipping through, and you see they don't just see it infrared, they have all different kinds of like visual filters on their masks.
Yeah, and eventually he flips to one that actually allows them to see the lights beaming off of their suits, and
he proceeds to murder fuck them one at a time.
Yeah, Danny Glover, he tries to give him the heads up, hey, he sees the lights, but
they won't listen to him because they're stubborn company men trying to play God.
And then the Predator shows up with a spear, kills quite a few of them. Danny Glover busts in after spending 10 minutes putting on armor and weapons.
Taking his sweet ass time.
Yeah. Then you find out Gary Busey is not dead, just horribly burned. Says, I'm going to save your ass. Gets cut in half, and a scene I've seen plenty of times, but never noticed this particular part of the effect. You see his legs drop, and then a huge splatter of blood, but you never see his actual upper torso fall to the ground.
It's like you can see the blood coming down, and it looks like it's a big gout. It looks like all the blood from the upper torso falling down once it's separated from the lower torso, but you never see the upper torso come down.
Yeah.
It's like he wasn't hanging from a meat hook. I guess they couldn't find a way to do that effect. I mean, like, his upper body's obscured. Why not just have it up on a string and then just cut the string so that it comes down, like, separate from the legs? I guess maybe they originally were planning to do that, but then, like, the censors were like, look, you got people throwing the F-bomb left and right. You got like people getting their heads cut off and their spines ripped out and shit. We can't just like have some guy get fucking cut in half like that and show both halves landing in a heap.
Well, not to mention this is one of the few movies that has full female nudity. So
Yeah, great stuff. This movie, great stuff. But
it's not too often you get to see a vagina and not porn.
and not porn. Well, this movie is like it's pretty fucking edgy. It's like it's kind of going for that RoboCop vibe. I can't help but feel like they're like where there's just lots of profanity, lots of violence because it's the fucking 80s and this is what the people want. God bless America. God damn
My country 'tis of thee.
it. That's why 80s movies were so cool back in the day, Lynn. You got a lot of this stuff. They knew what people wanted, and they were more than happy to deliver. Sex, violence. I love it.
I'd buy that for $1.
I love that was the running gag from RoboCop. Can I keep both of you? Just all the stupid people laughing at that dumbass show. Just to prove just how like entertainment had been like reduced to just like catchphrases and everyone just ate it up because everyone was a fucking idiot.
And so yeah, after he kills off the CIA team, Danny Glover ends up trying to chase this creature down once more. They get in a fight on a rooftop.
And even though he steals the javelin of the Predator, rather than throw it or attempt to stab the Predator with it, while holding it in his arms, he just straight up football tackles the Predator while he's on the roof ledge.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, you didn't ace your combat exams, did you, Danny Glover? And it shows them like they're on this ledge, like a little bit further down, and the Predator's hanging on to Danny Glover by his arm, and he's also holding on to his smart disc, which is implanted in the concrete. And like the Predator realizes that he's fucked, his hunt's over, and he's going to die. So he sets up his self-destruct mechanism. And Danny Glover, by this point, knows what it is because he was warned by Gary Busey's character that the Predator can blow themselves up, and when something starts ticking like a bomb,
it's probably a bomb.
So he rips out the disc and he uses it to cut right through the Predator's forearm, cutting the bomb system in half and thereby defusing it. Also causing a great cartoon moment where the Predator's falling down the side of the building, trying like fucking hell to slow himself down with his claws and his like his forearm mounted blade. Hits a pipe, goes swinging into another building where he lands in a heap, and now Danny Glover has to figure out how he can get down and follow suit.
Meanwhile, where the Predator has landed is in a apartment bathroom, and so he starts breaking down his med kit because he's pretty banged up at this point.
Yeah, he's been shot several times with like a police shotgun, which we assume had slugs, as opposed to buckshot. So he's got like all these nasty, gnarly bullet wounds, and plus he's got a handoff.
And he's making painful screams as he's applying his healing gel. And an old lady who lives in this apartment.
Yeah, one of the great comedy scenes of the movie.
Starts heading towards the bathroom with the broom.
I think there's someone in the bathroom. Herb, wake up! You hear Jeopardy playing in the background.
Always Jeopardy with old people.
Herb, wake up! And I'm thinking, like, man, if you didn't hear that, that dude's dead. Your husband is dead in your bed next to you. You just haven't bothered to notice that his heart stopped beating and he stopped breathing hours ago.
Time to call the life insurance.
But, like, yeah, she's like trying to come down on this thing with like a broom on the opposite side of the door, and it just like bursts through the door like the fucking Kool-Aid Man, and starts like Kool-Aid Manning his way down out the door of her apartment, down the hallway.
And Danny Glover gets in the bathroom just in time as he's doing his Kool-Aid Man act. It's okay, ma'am, I'm the police. I don't think he gives a shit.
Things I love about 80s movies, the fucking catchphrases, man. They did such a good job with that shit back in the day.
So he ends up chasing him down this elevator shaft, which ends up leading directly into his spaceship.
Well, it's like it's an underground like drainage system, like a sewer, and that's where the spaceship happens to be. And that's where he sees like he goes in the spaceship, which has got all this fog and shit on the ground, and that's where he finally sees the trophies rack that this thing's got. And you see like a couple of skulls, including the skulls of like one of his fellow policemen, a skull of that witch doctor dude. What was his name again?
King Willie.
Yeah, King Willie. And like a couple of other various skulls, some gnarly looking fucking skulls.
Yeah, two of them basically look like dragon skulls.
Yeah, but you also notice is like a nice little nod to the Alien franchise that appears to be a xenomorph skull is also on the wall. Now, why a silicon-based life form like the xenomorphs would actually have a skull is beyond me, but it's cool to look at.
Yeah. Well, I don't think at that point they were established as silicone-based creatures, but
I think they said that in the first movie. They said that it was a silicon-based life form, which is why it had acid for blood, and the blood didn't just like immediately burst out from their veins. Because like acid has a hard time through certain materials. One of the materials being silicon.
I'd have to watch the movies again. It's been a while since I've marathon those.
Well, I'll have to do that next time. But like that's why you can keep acid in glass and not like in your hand. It's like we tried putting it in all of our leather containers and we just couldn't.
Yep.
And so finally glass. Glass was the one thing that stopped it.
But yeah, while he's looking at the trophy case, the Predator ambushes him. They have their final showdown, and he ends up killing it by driving the smartness through its torso.
Yeah, considering just like how tough and leathery these things are, like they can take shots from high caliber rounds and it will not kill them. So like the fact that he gets this thing like knuckle deep up in this thing and brings it up, like he hits it, and Danny Glover hits it in the stomach and he brings it up to about chest high, which is what leads me to the belief that like those discs are kind of like designed to
Augment the force.
or just like just like they're momentum generators and shit.
Yeah.
And so he finally kills the alien, and he thought he killed it when he blasted it with the shotgun earlier. So he keeps like poking at it and shit just to make sure it's dead. And it's at that point when he sees a bunch of the fucking target reticles show up on his body, and there's like 9 more fucking predators on this ship. I love his reaction. He just like drops the smart disc. He's like, "All right, who next?" And instead, they do something interesting, like something you wouldn't expect at this point after seeing the 2 movies. A couple of them like go grab their dead comrade and drag him off, and they all just kind of walk off one at a time, except for the largest one, which you explained to me was actually the original one in a sense.
Yes, they modified the original costume. While it's not the original Predator, because obviously he blew himself to hell, it was the original costume that they had used.
It's like the original costume with like some extra trophies and fetishes and
Yeah,
made to look a bit older and more battle scarred, but other than that.
Yeah. And as he's fixing to walk off, he takes an old pistol off of his belt, tosses to him, says, "Take it." As he turns around and says, "Keep it." And then the ship starts to take off.
So he's like running like hell, trying not to be burned in the fire of the ship's thrusters, and barely manages it.
Yeah, he is covered in ash like Kratos.
That's a good simile. I didn't even realize. So like when he looks at the gun, it's like an old fucking flintlock pistol, complete with like one of those like brass butts. Like, because it's a single shot, and they had them this way, so when you fired your one shot, you turn it around and you'd use the big brass fucking knob on the handle to bludgeon your opponent to death if you missed or if you didn't die right away.
Yeah, and
it's like from 1712.
It's pretty old. And like it has the name engraved on it. When I was younger, somebody told me it was Jesse James, but watching the movie, it's not.
No, Jesse James was like the late 1800s.
Yeah. Would have been cool if it had some sort of notorious cowboy name on it, because I don't recognize the name that's actually on the pistol.
It was probably just some random Joe Smoke. Could have been like a soldier or like some sort of like.
From what I understand, they actually do a comic about that particular pistol. can't say for certain.
Yeah, but it shows that the predators are not just like killing machines; that they actually do have a semblance of honor.
Yeah,
And like, of course, like as the movie comes to a close, and Danny Glover's like walking his nearly cooked ass out of this tunnel, like a helicopter comes down. It's like what remains of the observation crew that was with Gary Busey's team. This is like, what did you do? There's so much we could have learned from it. You ruined our chance. And then they fuck off because the police are coming. And he just kind of smiles to himself. Says like, don't worry, I'm pretty sure you're going to get another chance.
yeah,
But it's meant to show that these things, they don't just come down just for shits and giggles. They've been coming down to hunt, and they come down every so often. And so like it shows like they've been coming down for a long ass time.
yeah.
And also that they can live a long time if we're to believe that this one predator like actually got the thing himself. Like it was a trophy for one of his personal like hunts back in the 1700s.
Yeah.
So they at least have the capacity to live several years. And with that is like I like those two movies. I like them. I'd say about the same. I like the first one more for its story and how it sets it up. I like the second one for just how they amp everything up and just how fucking awesome 80s it is.
Yeah. Well, the second one definitely has an awesome '80s vibe to it. But what I love most about it is actually how much lore that it sets up for the series as a whole.
Yeah, you see new weapons. You see how he actually cleans the skull. You see like the collection of skulls and realize it's not just human skulls. And you see that they have an honor system. You see that it's more than just one, so it's not like a single lone like alien race or like alien creature. That there's actually a race of them, and it shows that they do show up on Earth like periodically to hunt, and that they've been doing it for a very long time. It sets up all these lore facts that the first movie didn't.
Yeah. The first one, it's just a creature killing, and
It's essentially a slasher flick with like an action skin to it.
yeah, and it's the first one's a great movie in its own right. As I said, I don't care for the plot as much of the second one, but the lore that it sets up is fantastic.
Yeah, so now let's talk about the one that kind of set the series back a bit.
Well, I actually really like this one.
Well, it's not horrible, but it could have been so much better in my opinion. I guess I'd give it a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10, probably more like a 6 out of 10. But I don't really like giving numbers to movies because that number is going to change based on my mood and how recently I've seen it.
Yeah.
And what age I saw it, and like like nostalgia goggles and all that shit. But the most recent one was Predators, kind of going for how they went with on the second Aliens movie, where they went from alien to aliens, like they went from singular to plural. Now this one starts off quite differently. You start off with all the characters dropping from a high altitude, and they literally all wake up like mid-drop.
Yeah.
Which is not a fun way to wake up. And they at first like just fear each other because they assume that whenever they see someone new, that's like the same person that is responsible for them being like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, these are all high-level military or mercenary type people, and they're all from very different groups, and they don't trust each other when they first show up.
You get one guy who is like a convicted murderer who is just about to be executed. You get like a guy from like a death squad, like a South African death squad. You got a guy from like a Mexican cartel, played by Danny Trejo. It's a little sad that he gets killed off a little bit too soon, because like it's Danny Trejo. Like it's always fun to see him in a movie.
Yeah, then you have Yakuza, and I believe Russian KGB.
No, he was a Spetsnaz. It's kind of like the Russian versions of like Navy SEALs.
Okay.
You get like the main protagonist, for lack of a better term, like the one that the story seems to focus on the most. It was either Black Ops or a Merc. He never really says.
Yeah, well, it's believed by the female sniper that he was Black Ops and became a mercenary because of something.
Yeah, and then you have a doctor guy who everyone complains that is like shouldn't be there, and you don't find out why he's there until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and as it turns out, he is a serial killer in his spare time.
In his spare time. Yeah, the only reason he knows so much about like health is because well you tend to pick up a few things when you like dissect people in
Yeah.
your spare time. But so yeah, they all
Hobbies.
they all get dropped here, and you even get to see someone whose chute didn't deploy before he hit the ground, and he just lands in like a pile.
Yeah, when they actually see the pile, his legs have been burst off because he hit the ground so
And,
hard.
like one of his arms is like bent backwards and like sticking up, and like the fingers kind of grow. I'm thinking I've seen what happens like when you fall from several stories up. Well, not like just a few stories up. I did see a picture of what happened to someone who fell something like 30 stories, and there was way too much of them there. And that was from 30 stories up. These guys must have been dropped from like fucking like high altitude, low orbit, like a fucking halo jump. And it shows their chutes don't even like kick in until like right before they hit the ground.
Yeah, it is not a convenient time for him.
Yeah, no, it's like they all hit the ground pretty fucking hard. And they all have weapons except for it's funny, like the doctor just has a scalpel and like the convicted murderer just has like a shiv, and at one point he gets angry because everyone else has a gun of some description. And he's like, man, this is bullshit. Somebody give me a gun.
Everybody else has got a gun except me. You've got 2 guns. Give me one of your guns.
Yeah. Yeah, so like they're like the first part of the movie is just them trying to figure out what's what. Like they've all been dumped here, they don't know why. Surprisingly, they all speak English to some extent, and they all quickly realize that they're all soldiers. Like a lot of them were in the middle of fighting, like the enforcer guy, the cartel enforcer, the Spetsnaz guy, the death squad guy, and the main character were all involved in battles. They saw a white light, and the next thing they knew, they were waking up in free fall.
As Danny Trejo puts it, he was in the middle of combat, saw a white light, and chingao.
Like, yeah, first they come across, like, what was the first thing they came across? Like, shit, we just finished watching this movie a couple hours
Well,
ago.
the first unusual thing they come across is this strange structure in the middle of the woods. It's kind of like a spike sticking out of the ground.
It looks like a giant boomerang.
And the texturing of it almost looks like
Damascus steel.
Damascus steel is what I was thinking too, and it's covered in vines.
So obviously it's been there a long ass time.
Yeah.
Then I think the second thing they come across is like a big ass crate.
Yeah.
And they look at the crate and they see it's got like this weird shedded skin and like all these bugs that look like big ass space roaches or something crawling out of it. And so they think like, well, maybe it was the same thing that like dropped us off. It's like, and they realize like, no, this wasn't people that had dropped off. People don't shed like that. And also they were dropped with parachutes. These things were in containers. And then they look around and they see there's like dozens and dozens of these empty containers, like all over the place.
Yeah, and then finally they end up reaching a clearing where
just booby trapped to fucking hell.
Well, I forgot about that, but yeah.
It's like all these booby traps. You're talking like a deadfall trap. You're talking like a sharpened
Punji spikes.
a punji spike pit. Fucking those like vine snapback traps with like spikes on the inside of it that are designed to snap with natural tension. The main trap that they have to deal with is like these giant fucking like setups in the trees where they're like wooden spikes that all drop down, and they seem like to fall and chase after them.
Yeah, those spike traps, where the spikes are getting shot, they seem to actually go on for quite a bit. So whoever took the time to set those up had to spend a shitload of time setting up those spikes.
And so like they finally find like the corpse of a dude who looks like his chest has been blown open. If you've seen the first movie, you'll recognize that it looks like a plasma caster bolt hit him in the chest, just like it did Jesse Ventura. And they can tell that he's been there quite a while. He's kind of decomped a bit.
Yeah, the doctor guy says it's been at least 2 weeks, judging by the decomp.
And then they look at, he's got like a note, and he says that he was apparently like a U.S. Special Forces.
Yeah.
and that he didn't know where he was, and apparently he was being chased by something. So he set up all these traps, and like whatever it was, didn't set off the traps, got around to him, and they could see that he was like shooting the place up, like like to defend himself, but he failed. Then they come across a camp where they actually find one of the predators, except it's not.
Well, actually, they end up coming across that one field where they can actually see like the planets and the moons.
Oh yeah, that they realize that they're not anywhere on Earth. Because first they're trying to figure out what jungle they're in because they can't tell. Like the female soldier says, like, I've been to like almost all the jungles and this isn't one of them. There's like, this isn't an African jungle, this isn't like a Vietnamese jungle. And so the only thing they could tell is like it might be a South American jungle, but you can't tell for sure.
Yeah, she says the topography is all wrong.
Yeah. And so they go up on this hill and they see what appears to be like a planet that looks like Jupiter and a bunch of really close stellar bodies. Like, they almost look like moons to the planet they're on. Like, a lot fucking closer than our moon. I'm like, wow, if you can see a planet from that close, you're way too fucking close to it. Or that's a big ass fucking planet.
Yeah. But, yeah, so they realize they're not in Kansas anymore. And then that's when they come across the trophy camp.
Yeah. It's like this camp where they see, like, stuff hung upside down with no skin on it. And, like, leathers being dried out, probably for trophies. And they actually find, like I said before, a predator, except he's not one of the hunters because he's tied up. It's one of those big boomerangs in the ground. And he's not happy about it. Like, as soon as he gets woken up, he just starts, like, making noises at, like, the humans. Because he's pissed off and he doesn't want to be there.
Actually, we've skipped over the dog fight, because...
Oh, yeah, that happens first, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's a point where these...
weird, like, barbed dogs.
Yeah, this is after they've realized they're on another planet, but they get hunted by these dog-like creatures. They're, as he said, they're hounds that seem to have all these barbs growing out of their head.
And backs. They look like big fucking angry tusks and shit that just come out of their backs. Like big horns and shit. It just makes them look unpleasant. And they waste a lot of their ammo trying to kill these things.
Yeah, the prison guy, he actually shanks the shit out of one of them. He doesn't finish killing it.
But he just pisses the thing off.
Yeah, but he does what he can with his shiv. And this is where Danny Trejo's character ends up getting killed.
Well, he gets picked off, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like they lose track of him in the fight, and they find him in a clearing, like, hunched over, calling for help. And one of the characters, like, he picks up a rock and he throws it into the clearing, and it immediately gets disintegrated by like these fucking like scissor blades hidden in the grass. And they realize, oh, this is a fucking trap. The death squad guy says, like, you hurt someone so bad that they cry out for help, and then you booby trap it for when his friends show up to help him. We used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, they decide to leave him there because they know it's a trap. And that's when the sniper girl, she puts a bullet through his heart to kill him so that he wouldn't have to suffer, and then he calls out for help again, and then they show, like, a shot from behind their perspective, so you can actually see that, like, he's been dead.
Yeah.
And that, like, someone's been calling out in his voice to try to get their attention. It's one of the predators using a human call.
Yeah. And then they reach the meat camp.
Yeah. And that's when they come to the conclusion that, like, with all the dogs and whatnot that were chasing them, it was like, this is a hunting ground. We're being hunted. Because it's just like you send hounds to flush out your prey and to find out where they are. Also, like, the few of those weird tusk hounds that they didn't kill got drawn off by a kind of whistle that, like, stopped their attack, and they ran off when they got called back. And when they're encountering the predator in the trophy camp is when, like, the actual predators show up. It's like 2 regular-sized ones and, like, an extra big one.
Yeah, there's one that shows, and he has some tusk mounted onto his helmet, and he's the one that apparently uses the hounds. And then there's another one who, instead of having the plasma caster, he has a drone that kind of looks like a bird when it extends out. that I believe is referred to as the Falconer, the credits, and then the big one, he has a black mask with a jawbone mounted at the bottom of it.
And you'll actually recognize it from the movies that the jawbone he's got on the bottom is actually like the lower mandibles of like a predator. So it's pretty clear that these things actually hunt other predators.
And I believe this one is credited as the Berserker.
Yeah, because he's like much larger than any of the other predators you see in the movie.
Yeah, maybe it's one of the females.
I didn't see no tits on it, so I can't be sure. Assuming that they actually breastfeed in their race.
I don't think you're allowed to show breast anymore in movies. I could be wrong.
That's why movies suck now. But so we see that they make a break for it, and they manage to get picked up by a survivor, played by Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
Now he talks about how he's actually been there. I think he describes this as every season they drop more people in to hunt them, and that he was part of one of those drops that he describes as he's been there long enough to go completely fucking insane. He's talking to people that ain't there.
Yeah.
In fact, he says, like, I've been here 7 seasons, and he looks up to the side, 10 seasons? Really? You think so? Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
He's actually, like, he's managed to, like, scavenge some of the Predator technology. He's made, like, a plasma caster-proof vest. He's made some stuff that, like, makes it difficult for them to see you. He's got, like, a weapon that he made out of some of their supplies. And he's also got...
he's got one of their masks so he can see their heat signatures.
and he's also got thermoptic camouflage.
Yeah.
Though that probably doesn't mask the heat signatures. Probably if he can see them when they're camouflaged, they can see him if he's camouflaged.
Yeah.
But, so he explains that he's been there a long time and he just scavenges when he can. He also explains that, like, every season they drop people down, then they show up. They go to the camp. They usually park their spaceship, like, about 20 or 30 yards away. And he says, first there used to be just one of them, and sometimes they get killed. He explains that he's killed 2 of them himself.
Yeah.
Which is why he's got, like, a mask and whatnot, and some of he's managed to generate some weapons. He's actually in some sort of spaceship. He says the ship's dead, but the power source still works. So he uses it as his hiding hole. It hides his heat signature. Not to mention he can use the power there to, like, light the inside and cook his food and whatnot, and maybe even use it for purifying water. Well, again, there's some pretty clean-looking water sources there. It'd just be a matter of getting some water and bringing it back. But, so yeah, he invites them to stay. And he says, like, he's like, have you ever tried to get off? He's like, no, you just hide. It's the only thing you can do. Every time you kill one, they find,
They get stronger.
yeah, like they used to come, like, one at a time, but then, like, after one of them got killed, they started coming in threes. So that if one of them dies, the other 2 can recover the body. And it says they always learn. When one of them drops, they always find out how they died and why they died. And then they come back with countermeasures so that they won't die the same way the next time. So, like, if they get killed by one of their own weapons, they probably modify it so that it's either not as easy to take, or doesn't work on themselves, or just doesn't work in any hands other than theirs, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that as soon as they start laying down their guard, the room they're in starts filling with smoke, and they realize they're locked in. And the guy's trying to suffocate them to death because they realize he's a scavenger. He wants to steal our stuff. And you actually hear him. He's arguing with one of his imaginary friends, saying, like, I can't live with you. How the hell am I supposed to live with them too?
6 more mouths to feed.
I just like the idea of he is so crazy, he's just bitching to nobody.
Yeah. And while these people are trying to break free of the room, he takes off and runs into one of the predators.
Only after one of them uses, like, a grenade to, like, blast a hole in the skin of the spaceship, which attracts the predators in the first place.
Yeah.
They hear the boom and they see the fire coming out of it and realize there's something up there.
And it's almost like he just accepts his death, because he just stands there and says, "Oh, you finally found me."
And then he gets, like, fucking obliterated by a plasma caster around.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's been living like a fucking rat for that long. I'm pretty sure the idea of dying is the only reason he hasn't killed himself because he didn't have the guts to do it. Yeah, he knew he wasn't going to win that fight, so he didn't even bother. And so they escape, and they lose a few more of their number.
Yeah, though the Russian, he sacrifices himself with some explosives to kill one of the other predators.
And the Yakuza guy finds a very old samurai blade there. He keeps commenting, it's like, this is an old blade. This is very, very old.
They've been doing this for a long time.
Well, not a samurai, but the Yakuza. He finds like an old katana, and he takes it with him. And so that's like the smaller one gets killed by the Russian. He gets fucking impaled, and he pulls down in his vest and shows that he's got a claymore strapped to himself, and so he sets it off right in the predator's face. The second predator comes across the Yakuza guy who's waiting for him in a field.
The prisoner, he ends up getting killed by the berserker before that happens.
Oh yeah, like
he shanks the shit out of him too.
Yeah, he gets shot in the back with a plasma caster around, so the berserker assumes he's dead, and he jumps on his back to like save the others by shivving the shit out of him. He gets thrown back, and he gets his fucking spine and his skull ripped off in one clean pull.
Yeah, but before this happens, you get to see the back of his shirt. You can see he's wearing the armor beneath his shirt that Lawrence Fishburne had made. So that's how he survived the plasma blast.
Yeah, but that doesn't protect him from the spine ripples.
Yeah, spine ripples. Well,
It's like we call this rippy bitch, yank.
Yeah, then the Yakuza and the Predator get into the Aiajutsu duel.
And they both end up dying, but it's still impressive for the Yakuza guy because we have to assume that they're not just stronger, but that they're faster than any human can be.
Yeah.
And it takes several swings for the Yakuza guy to take down that Predator, but it only takes one swing for the Predator to get him down. It's he only hit him once, but that's all he needed. And that's also where you notice that their gauntlet-mounted blades are different.
Yeah, the Falconer, he only has a single blade, but it's much longer than the rest
And
of
the
them.
Berserker one has one that's very similar to that one as well. Now the other one had the two blades, but two of them had it's this more rounded shaped blade, like a scythe blade or a sickle blade.
Yeah.
And it's about twice as long, so this thing's really fucking long. So we're down to just the Berserker, and at this point the protagonist, he's under the assumption that, we got to find that other one. He's probably not happy about being strung up like that. He's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And of course, the rest of the team's you're crazy. You can't just assume this thing's going to help us if we set it free. Well, he sets it free, and he says, I want to go home. Do you understand me? And at first, it looks like he's about to fuck him up. And then, he comes back, gets his equipment on, and shows his gauntlet, and shows him Earth. He's you want to go here? Huh? But, it's at this point that the big Berserker shows up, and while this is going on, the other two try to run, and the protagonist makes for the ship. The other two get caught in a net and dumped in a hole. And, of course, this is where we find out that the doctor is actually the serial killer, and he plans on killing the sniper woman.
Yeah, he stabs her in the neck with a poison-laced scalpel that paralyzes her.
And it tells us, oh, don't worry, it just paralyzes your muscles. You'll be able to experience everything. It's oh, great, that really settles me. I was worried there for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up.
How considerate of you.
Ass.
Yeah. And he talks about how he feels at home living amongst all these monsters instead of a freak back at home.
And so the protagonist comes up on him and he tries to play it off. It's oh, you came just in time.
She's been paralyzed.
She's been drugged with something. I don't know what. And of course, the protagonist was probably there long enough to hear it. So he's oh, we didn't expect you to come back. And the protagonist knows that doctor's full of shit. So when the doctor tries to shank him from behind with the scalpel, he just grabs it, turns it around, and shoves it up into his fucking jaw. And drags him off to use him as bait for the big one. You see the big Berserker and the smaller Predator go toe to toe, but the big berserker is just much more powerful than the other predator, and he wrecks his shit.
Yeah, eventually decapitates him.
But he keeps him busy long enough for the human characters to get their shit together.
Yeah, and this one, realizing that they see by heat, he ends up setting a shitload of fires and basically starts attacking the berserker from the blind spot using a big stone club he finds in the trophy area.
And manages to hurt him, knocks his mask off, where you get to see that his mandibles are really much larger, and his mouth is actually a lot more different than a regular predator's mouth as well.
Yeah, also his coloration is more orange instead of yellow, and he's got some darker stripes to him.
It would lead you to believe that he's either a different subspecies of the predators, or perhaps a different clan, or perhaps an outcast clan, which might explain why he was that he'd actually captured a regular predator and strung him up like that. Because for all we know, we don't know the history behind that. You said there was a comic.
Well, there's a comic called Tribes, which gets into that, but also Lawrence Fishburne's character says they're similar but different. It's like the difference between dogs and wolves.
So you see that eventually the predator figures out that the guy's using the fire to hide himself, so he switches over his visor to see sound, and he can actually see his heartbeat affecting his surroundings, and that's how he manages to catch him. He starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And right before he ends his ass, the sniper girl, who's finally coming out of her paralysis, manages to...
She shoots him in the shoulder, I believe.
No, she shoots him through where she expects his heart to be, but that doesn't kill him. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the merc, at the start of this whole confrontation, leaves the doctor there injured, and
Full of grenades.
yeah. So when the predator pulls him over, the big berserker predator pulls him upside down to check him. He's got all these hand grenades strapped to himself, and he blows up right in the predator's face, sending him flying. I'm thinking those weren't just concussion grenades; those were hand grenades. The fragments would have been all up in his everything, because that's what frag grenades do.
Yes, itchy frag grenades and crotch.
Yeah, but it's a movie, so it's just a fuel gas explosion that sends him flying. Yeah, so the sniper shoots the alien through where his heart would be if he was a human. I have to imagine if that's actually where their hearts are, because he doesn't die right away.
Well, according to the Mortal Kombat games, that's where their hearts are. But
I think they just do that because they have to use the same generic internal structure.
yes,
Which is why all the cyborgs have organs and bones, and the aliens have organs and bones, and the predators have organs and bones.
well, it's an example we can use.
True, I guess. But so that gives Homeboy enough time to pick up an axe and slowly sever this thing's head.
He hits it a lot with the axe.
Yeah, it takes a while. That's
A good damn long time.
well, because it's a really sturdy creature with really tough skin, so it's cutting down a fucking tree with a hatchet. It's gonna take you a while.
Yeah, but eventually he gets his lumberjack on hard enough that he managed to take this guy's head off, and the second predator of the movie has now been decapitated.
So that's all the predators. Unfortunately, when the big berserk alien saw that the human was running towards the ship, he set the ship to self-destruct, so they no longer have a means of getting off this planet. But after this fight, the sun finally rises, and look over and they see a bunch more people are being dropped down, as well as a bunch more of those containers, and they realizing it's alright, let's see if we can't find a way off this damn planet, and the movie just ends. The best part I liked about the movie was how they used that, "It's gonna have me some fun tonight" for the ending credits.
Yeah. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was nice to see some different style predators. It's something that, as a kid, I've always enjoyed about the comics and the action figures. And while I realize the action figures aren't canon to the movies, it was still a really fun part for me. When I was young, I actually had made a role-playing game where you played as predators, and I had worked out different tribes and different honor systems for each tribe and such. and it was a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of being heroes and killing dragons, you went to different planets and slayed different kinds of aliens.
For honor and prestige and mating rights.
Yep. So that's always been a really fun aspect for me, and so to finally get to see it be introduced in the movies was a really positive thing for me. Um,
I mean, you get to see like a few various things. Like in the second movie, like one of the cops is like dealing with the predator, and the predator is just about to end her everything until like he uses his thermal scan and realizes that she's pregnant, and then he just kind of like drops her and lets her go, and goes about his business. And like that's kind of a hunter mentality because when you're hunting deer, you're not supposed to shoot the does. You can, but that'll get your license revoked, and you'll have to pay a fine if they find out.
yeah, and well, I don't think the predators have to worry about like
Over hunting humans.
a fine or a revocation.
Well, I mean, like that'd probably be just like you're not going to get like any honor or prestige from that.
Right. It's not an honorable act.
Yeah, it's like technically they could just go into like a cancer ward of a hospital and just take as many fucking skulls as they want. They're not going to get that much of a fight. It'll be fucking easy. But I don't think they're going to get a lot of honor from those kills.
Yeah, one thing you find out through the Aliens versus Predator movies is that these masks can actually like record data. So I'm pretty sure they kind of have to display the hunts that they've
Yeah,
done.
because like you can't just go and find like a dead version of like what you're hunting and then cut its head off and take it and say, "Look what I did."
Yeah, that would be a good way to stop the fish was this big story. Okay, let's see how big the fish really was.
Oh, I took my mask off. I don't like fighting with it. It
It's
cramps
so
my
sweaty.
stomach.
Yeah. Another thing you actually get to see in the Aliens versus Predator Requiem movie is a new weapon where they have these bladed whips. It's the only movie you actually get to see that particular weapon in, but it's pretty cool. But we'll talk about those two later. We will.
Oh, you did convince me to sit there and watch the last Phantasm movie, which, oh man, that was a stinker. Though it was good to see Angus Scrimm as one more role as a tall man, but still, that movie was a third.
Well,
But we'll have to go back and talk about the Phantasms later again, because there's nothing that says we can't go back and talk about the same subject again. It's just we have something different to say about it.
yeah.
We're people. We're not robots, and we're not fucking books. Our opinions are subject to change. You don't like what we have to say? Come back later on when we talk about it again.
We might have a different opinion.
Yeah, you don't know. That's a sad attempt to get people to keep listening.
Well, it's either that or the Angry Monkey Christ merch. But I always have loved the Predator movies, and as long as they don't do something really retarded with them, I will probably continue to enjoy them.
Well, if it's a property by Fox, that might have been like one of the things that got bought up by Disney during that big acquisition that they had at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So Lord knows if Disney's going to do anything else with that.
One of my friends was telling me there's actually plans for another Predator movie that he said was going to take place between part 2 and 3. Maybe it'll focus on Lawrence Fishburne's character before he actually got picked up onto that planet, or the events of what happened live.
I would like to see them do a movie that actually goes to the Predator's home planet and you actually find out about their culture and their habitat.
Yeah, I know I said we'll talk about the Aliens versus Predator movies later, but god damn it, the way the first one ends, I wish they would have gone with the comic book ending.
Oh, of course not, because that would have been too good. Then they would have had to have burned that fucker to the ground. It's like, we made too good of a movie. Burn it. Put it on the pyre with the rest of them. Like Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, basically one of the humans, she has proven herself alongside this one warrior predator worthy to be a hunter, and he gives her the hunter's mark. And at the end of the movie, an elder predator gives her like a spear as recognition for what she's done. But in the comic book, she actually joins the predators and becomes a full-fledged hunter. And
I wonder if she gets mating rights too.
I don't know.
Ugh.
I don't know, but
She gets to lick like the most heinous carpets anytime she wants.
but that was a really fascinating comic, and man, I wish they didn't screw up and did that one. That would be wonderful.
Like I tell you, man, those movies got problems with them. Like how they try to convince you that like Daniel Whalen was like homeboy with a heart condition that gets killed by a predator, and then they come back with like the Prometheus movie and say, no, this is the real Daniel Whalen, some cranky old fucker who gets his bludgeoned in by the head of one of his androids.
Well, we'll discuss the inconsistencies, but
The horror that is Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
yeah, Ridley Scott did make it clear he did not care what canon he was affecting by making.
But he won't care about how much I'm gonna shit all over his dreams.
I don't shit on his dreams, just shit in a box and mail it to him.
That's what other people do. He probably has like, mail sniffers just to make sure he doesn't have that happen more often than he needs to.
Yeah, once you get past 3 turns a day, you kind of get tired of opening your mail.
It's like, this isn't an envelope. How'd they manage that? It's not even a package. It's like some people just like find out where he lives and just throw like shit at him from their car. Drive by shitting. Or they'll just drive by really fast while sticking their ass out the window.
Bunch of people climb up on his fence and stick a dump off.
And they just, it's like he has to put like fucking like barbed wire on the top of the fence so people won't like sit on there like it's a fucking toilet just to shit down the other side.
I see people putting branches on the barbed wire like birds so they can still sit up there and take shit to his lawn.
Yeah, that guy's completely lost his shit based from what I've heard.
He's lost his shit, that's why everybody's giving him theirs.
Alright, well, we've talked pretty long on this one. Damn, we're well over the hour 30-minute mark. So if we have anything else to say, we'll probably come back to this subject again, as well as many other subjects. So keep on coming by, like, comment, subscribe. Did you like what we had to say? Did you have something different? Throw in your own ideas on the Predator series. Also, feel free to comment on which one you like the best out of the 3 and why. But for now, we're going to go ahead and leave you, and until next time, this is Fat and Angry. He's been fat, and I've been angry. See you next time.
Eat lots of pizza.